Well, hey y'all. Good to see you. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to be back with you guys in a live way. Last week, y'all got to meet my friend Anna Lawrence. She is a habit and life coach and just all around cool person. And I am grateful that I get to interview folks like her. So I hope you got time to spend listening to that conversation, to how you can take habits and routines and really incorporate them into your daily life in little small ways to really help yourself feel good, particularly on days when life just shows up, right? So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm excited about today's content. We're going to talk about owning our pain. And I came across a great quote from Anne Lamott that I'm going to read once I share the content. Um, but it always struck me that so much of my healing journey has been when I was willing to face my pain and just see it for what it was. Not tell a story about it, not make it anything it wasn't, or what I hoped it would be, or what I wished it would be, just what it was and all of its yuckiness. Because sometimes life just shows up and it's yucky and it's ouchy and it's difficult. And so when I talk about my desire to feel good, it's it's why this whole platform exists, because I got to a point in my life where the pain point was too strong, and I had been in therapy for a really, really long time. And I came across another therapy that I'm certified in called imago therapy. And I talked about this a little bit with Anna when we were talking about that humans are designed for connection. And in that connection is where we can find healing. And one of the things I have noticed in both in my work and in my own healing journey is the power of witnessing. The power of witnessing another person's pain. The power of being able to sit with someone without any need, without any desire to fix or rescue. Perhaps the desire might be there, but you don't act on it because you know any prescribing, any managing, suddenly that human being that is in pain in front of us just becomes an object to use so that we don't have to feel the pain that they're feeling. Because you see, humans, we pick up on other people's pain, and that's actually our superpower. It's called empathy. And learning how to be empathetic is a practice, especially if you are a recovering control freak. And don't worry, I am the first in line on that one, for sure. Pain is uncomfortable for me. Emotional pain. I can remember as a child not wanting to watch television shows where people, um, were embarrassed or made fun of because I was so sensitive to their pain. And I think because of that, I just like stomped on my empathy ability at a young age because it just felt too powerful. And there was no one around me I could go to say, help me walk through this discomfort, help me walk through this pain. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to walk through my pain. I don't know how to be empathetic uh, in a safe way, right? Because taking on all those emotions requires boundaries. It requires being able to know when you need to step back or when you need to take a breath or when you need a break. And that is something that I did not know until much later in life. And so I am so passionate about helping people discover their emotional self through coaching. But when I discovered Imago, and Imago actually began and is known as for its relationship therapy, working with couples primarily. However, it is now expanding into parent-child relationships, into what they're calling communologues, which is community dialogue, right? Don't y'all think we need some community dialogue in our world these days? I do, right? I do. I think we've forgotten how to listen to one another with intention. Anna talked about that last week with intentional deep listening. She described that as her value. It reminded me of that importance of being able to listen to another human being without listening to respond, but listening to understand. So Imago really kind of expanded my world in that way from my ministry background, from my pastoral background, from my chaplain work background, from all of the ways I've worked with people over the past 20-ish years of my life. And even as an educator, where I was, spending a lot of my time educating and walking people through um, new information, new data. So I've kind of got that skill set too. So this is why I show up here on Mondays, because I think it's important to talk about it. And that's another reason why I've added the podcast into being able for listeners to listen to this information and consume it in a way that works for you. You don't have to sit here and watch an hour video. If you want to be live, cool, that's great. But 4 o'clock on a Monday afternoon may not work for you. But Wednesday, when the podcast drops, you can listen to that podcast while you're driving, while you're commuting home, while you're in the car line picking up your kid, while you're doing all the things, while you're cooking dinner, while you're exercising. There's just so many options with audio, and so I'm really going to be focused a lot on my audio. Um, but I'm an educator at heart. But I love people. I love getting to know people. And so I'm working on my next interview, setting that up. It's going to be exciting content. You're going to see an interview on the live probably once a month. That's kind of what I'm shooting for right now. And in the meantime, of course, you get to see me on other Mondays. And as usual, the first Monday of every month, I will not be on. I will take a break. Okay. So I hope y'all are doing great. I hope you're doing good. It's an interesting time where we're coming out of this pandemic. And do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? It's like everyone's confused. Um, the vaccinations and uh, the hope that we all can get to a place of normality. I have heard again and again, we're going to get back to normal. And I just don't think normal is going to be normal again. If you get my feeling, right? If you get, I think it's difficult. I think it's hard. Um, Okay, so exciting news coming up. So the digital course that I've had in work is built in parts and pieces, and I am now kind of ready to say, okay, the full course isn't ready yet because there's so many parts to it. But I think I am ready to actually just kind of launch something and really do a virtual workshop. So that's the next thing to come. And this virtual workshop would be on the first part of my course, which is discovering you again. It's like a small workbook where we work through it together, but I want it to be a live workshop, virtual live workshop where we can walk through it together. And I think that's going to be powerful. And I'm hoping to have some guests participate who bring their expertise, similar to Anna, bringing in her habit expertise and her experience with Noom as a habits coach. And I just think so many people bring these unique experiences that they bring. Like my background is unique, Anna's background is unique. Other coaches I know just bring a super intent focused specialty, and I want to make sure you have access to that. Reminder: I do one-on-one coaching. I am taking on clients right now, but I do have to limit the amount of clients I'm taking on. So if you're interested in a coaching session with me, we can schedule a free breakthrough type call where you just get to conversate with me and we talk about some ways that we can leverage what's going on in your life. What are the desires you want? What are the things you're looking for your future goals? And we'll work on that together. I also am willing to do group coaching. At this time, I have not done any group coaching, but it is something I am interested in. So if there is a group of people that you feel like would benefit from group coaching or doing a specialty group coaching, even on emotional health or navigating hard emotions, that is a popular topic that I have. So we can talk about it. So reach out to me on letsfeelgoodnow.com. You'll see all the things at the end where I will remind you about all the things that are out there that you can access. And without further ado, I think we can jump into content. All right, owning our pain. So this is a quote for me. Taking responsibility for our pain is not excusing or denying what was done to us. It is recognizing we are 100% responsible for how we manage our pain today. And that is painful and hard, I know. Um, but owning our pain is not in any way saying that what was done to us is okay or appropriate, because it probably wasn't. But what is our responsibility is recognizing and acknowledging that the pain that we have today is ours to manage. And there are a lot of big reasons why we want to own our pain, and we're going to get to that. All right, number one, what someone else did to you is not your fault. You did not cause their behavior. You were not able to control their behavior or choices when it happened. And you cannot change how their decisions, choices, behavior impacted you. This is coming from a recovering codependent. I will be a recovering codependent for the rest of my life. But one of the hallmarks of codependency is I have to regularly remind myself I did not cause it, I cannot change it, and I cannot control it. Big C's. They're called the 3 C's in recovery work. I didn't cause it, I can't control it, and I can't change it. But those 3 are gigantic rocks. Because when we feel like we caused it, there's implicit guilt. We feel guilty, which then quickly becomes shame about something that happened to us, but we didn't cause it. And it may be something along the lines as simple as your parents getting a divorce, or your favorite dog getting hit by a car, or your best friend talking about you at school behind your back, or being bullied. You know, things happen to us and cause us pain. We're not the cause of it. Their choices, their actions, their behaviors are theirs. And it is their responsibility to deal with that. But we didn't cause it. We couldn't control it. Control is a facade. Control of other people is an illusion. And it is an illusion that can be very, very destructive because it's an illusion that's like a magic trick. It's like a sleight of hand. We convince ourselves that we can control another person's behavior. And you cannot change how their decisions, their behaviors, their choices impact you. You can't change that. You are where you are today. This is why coaching is so important to me, is getting people to a place of acknowledging the right now, right? The moment today. Because we can live in the past for a long, long time. And we can hold on to that story and nourish it and keep it going when we're not really living in the present, we're living in the past, or we're living in some anticipated future that we're not really doing anything about to get to. So that's why coaching is so important to me, because I feel like I can help people get to today. So you can't change what was done to you in the past, and it wasn't your fault, and you couldn't control it. You couldn't stop it if you wanted to, and you cannot change how it has impacted you today. But you can do some things. This is the quote from Anne Lamott. You own everything that happened to you. You own it. You're the owner. Tell your stories. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. Okay, I gotta read that again. It's one of my favorite quotes. You own everything that happened to you. In other words, you owned it. You experienced it. It is part of your story. So you get to tell your story. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. This is a giant permission slip from one of the best writers I've known, and I have a long list of favorite authors. Anne Lamott writes so intensely. She reminds me of Maya Angelou, actually. So you own it. This is your story to tell. Owning your pain is owning your story, owning what happened to you. It is not in a place of, oh, those people did something horrible to me and I'm going to gossip about them. No. It is something happened to me, and that experience that happened to me that caused my current pain and discomfort is my story to tell. It's also a very good boundary to indicate who deserves to hear your story. Who deserves it? Not everybody deserves to hear your story. So if people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. Yeah? One of my favorite quotes. All right. And I am going to make sure this whole presentation is available on the podcast when it drops on Wednesday, so you can click and get access to it. All right. All right, so let's go to number 2. We survived our pain by learning coping behaviors. Our body Our brain, our nervous system, our limbic system served us well. And coping behaviors are 100% okay and are not bad. They serve a purpose. We're human beings. We have experienced pain and difficulty and challenges, and the way we learn to survive is cope. So much of our life we have to cope with the realities that are in front of us. And we learn behaviors to be able to manage the amount of discomfort that we're feeling, the amount of grief, sadness, sorrow, depression, loneliness, especially after a pandemic, right? There were coping mechanisms that people take on. And coping mechanisms are not bad. They're neither good nor bad. They just are. And sometimes our coping mechanisms serve us well, and sometimes they lose their serving power. But that is a very unique thing. No one can decide whether your coping mechanism is good for you or not. Only you get to decide that. Now, yes, there are some glaring coping mechanisms that perhaps need further attention. But again, that is still a response from pain. And that coping mechanism deserves to be acknowledged, to be seen for what it is, and the purpose that it's there. So we survived. We survived. Yes. Like my favorite quote is on difficult days, because I have suffered from anxiety most of my life. And there are some days where I wake up and I don't even want to get out of bed. And there are some days when I think about my task list and things that I need to get done, and I am overwhelmed by paralysis because I feel like I'm going to mess it up. I have an anxiety that is pervasive and constant every minute of my life. But I can tell you my motto is I have survived 100% of my worst days. So I'm pretty sure I can survive this one. And that's what I say to myself. So we have all gone through some hard stuff in our life. Our stories are different. Your story is different. It is unique to you. But owning your pain is the pathway to finding your healing. Unfortunately, it's not always the route we choose, because we believe the lie that says if we avoid our pain, we don't have to deal with it. That is not going to be helpful or beneficial information, right? So the key I want to focus here is that look, coping saved us. Our bodies are miracles, and the brain's ability to protect us from our trauma and our pain. It's like magic what our body is capable of doing. But our body also has a limit. It holds on to stress and it holds on to emotional trauma in a way that we don't realize, that we're not conscious of. And so we have to practice this. It is a practice. It is no different than physical fitness. Emotional fitness is just like physical fitness. It is as much as you use it that you learn to respond accordingly. The first time I got on my Peloton bike, I was stunned at how hard it was. I had been spinning in the gym for years, 6, 7 years. I thought it can't be that hard. Well, the first time I did a class, I was like, whoa, this is this is hard work, right? Because it's a different type of work than I had done before. So it was a new area of fitness for me physically. Emotional fitness is the same way. You're going to feel like we all get to a point where we feel like I'm emotionally good. I'm in this good place. I feel good. And then something happens and we get knocked off that platform and we don't even know how to get back on the platform. We're not even sure if we want to get back on the platform, because feeling bad can oddly feel good sometimes, right? So that's what I mean about coping. We all have these coping behaviors. Sometimes it's scrolling on your phone. Sometimes it's listening to music. Sometimes it's taking a walk. Sometimes it's maybe eating a little bit too much, eating the entire package of Oreos versus just the few that you're supposed to eat, right? But we all have these. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're just helping us survive. So when we take a good hard look at our coping mechanisms, we might personally need to make decisions about them. But overall, they served us. It's just sometimes they lose their service after a while, and we got to take a hard look. That's where the habits and the routines come in with Anna, right? She can help with that. Okay, so let's go to this quote from me. If we don't own our pain will own us. This quote came to me last night in the shower because that's where all amazing thoughts come from. Y'all know I'm right. Y'all know. Like with the shower, like that's where deep thoughts come from. And I literally got out of the shower and as quickly as I could grabbed my phone because I'm not one of those people who have their phone in the shower. My daughter does that. I don't understand it. Anyway, I typed it into my phone because I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly the truth. If we don't own our pain will own us. And we don't like that. And I imagine that sentence may land in a way that makes your belly just want to just be yuck. You know, it hits me in the gut every time I read it because it's true. You know, my favorite story is from Liz Gilbert, who was telling a story about her partner that she was married to, who has now passed away. Her name was Rhea. But, you know, she told this story of Rhea saying to her, they were going through a challenging time. And she said, when your life falls apart, the only thing left standing will be the truth. So that's okay. It's okay if everything falls apart because at least you'll know the truth. This is truth. If you don't own your pain, it will own you. What happens when we allow our pain to own us? Well, a lot of things, not fun things. If we don't own our pain, it owns us. We react out of our pain. Pain is driving, not us. Now I want you to imagine it's a rainy night. It's dark. You're driving the vehicle. Would you allow your brand new driver, 13 years old, 15-year-old permit, never driven a car before, get in that driver's seat to drive? Would you do that? Okay, all the mamas, y'all know, ain't no way in heck I can even handle when my daughter had her permit riding around the block in the car with her. I was so nervous. I could not imagine letting her drive, right? Didn't have enough experience. Didn't have enough wisdom. When we allow our pain, and remember the source of our pain, often our pain comes from the wounds that we received in our childhood. In the earliest years of our lives, the earliest development, not all of it, but the most painful stuff that's deep under the waterline, like the iceberg image, I've talked about that before. The stuff way underneath the waterline is usually from our earliest years. Because those earliest years, we are open, right? We are open, we're curious, we're wondrous. Naturally, children are just naturally eager to connect. But when we experience rejection or shame or pain or any kind of emotional or verbal abuse, those wounds are gaping. And so I want you to think about your pain, my pain that I have in my body is often pain that is from a long, long time ago that is triggered by something. And so if I am allowing the 12-year-old Heather to drive a car, to drive my life because of her pain, no. It's like I have a saying, there's all the parts of me, right? All the parts of me get to get into the bus of my life. They get to come along because they're all parts of me. The insecure Heather, the scared Heather, the frightened Heather, the bullied Heather, the abused Heather, all those parts of me are welcome to get into the bus. They just don't get to drive, right? We act and react from our pain when we don't own our pain. And when we don't own our pain, we unknowingly pass on our pain. The passing on of our pain shows up in our most intimate relationships, romantic or family, parent-child in particular. These are all very, very common to see the passing on of our pain between one another in a relationship. It shows up as stonewalling. It shows up as defensiveness or anger or resentment or shame. It's words thrown back and forth like arrows being thrown at one another. We all know what I'm talking about. But that is pain that is being passed on. We're not owning our pain to take responsibility for our pain. And taking responsibility for our pain requires us to show up for ourselves in a vulnerable way without judgment of others. We have to show up for ourselves in a vulnerable way without judgment of others. Because when we start to go to judgment, then we're blaming, then we're shifting, right, the vantage point from us to others, right? That's exactly what judgment does. It says, oh, I don't want the spotlight. This reminds me of me. I'm going to point at somebody else, right? So judgment is often just like a mirror. Sometimes, not all the time. So if we don't own our pain, it owns us. And guys, we're going to pass it on. I have lived this generationally in my own family. I have seen this time and time again. When I have worked with people, I have seen this time and time again. If we don't take responsibility for our pain, we will pass it on. That means we pass it on to the people we love the most in our lives. Right? Okay. So healing happens in different ways. Okay? Everybody's different. Everybody's different in how we heal. So you may need to work with a clinical therapist on some emotional trauma, emotional work. That may be what you need. You may find healing in a support group or a close friend group. Or you may find healing working with an emotional or spiritual coach like me. Or you may need all three of these. If I had a choice, I'd have all three. Because sometimes I need my therapist, and sometimes I need a friend, and sometimes I need a support group, and then sometimes I just need somebody to help me think about where I want to go and what the plan looks like and how I can actually navigate through things, right? So coaches are different in that way. You know, it's a forward-looking effort without denying the past, but very much in present reality, right? Present life right now. So a lot of my therapy was understanding my past, understanding the pain of my past. My support groups helped me kind of see others who had similar pain, and my emotional and spiritual coaching kind of helps me move forward and through to a new landscape, to a newer horizon. Okay, so healing happens in different ways, all right? And everybody's different. So there's no like, one-step process, right? Okay. Just want to make sure y'all know there's no quick fix to emotional pain, to owning our pain, but there are options, all right? So let's do a reminder of our roadmap, right? Hard feelings roadmap. How do we navigate through this stuff? Well, first of all, you're going to see that there's a triggering event. There's going to be something that triggers that deep emotional pain. And you know it when you feel it. You know when pain is driving because you want to. There's usually an urgency or a sense of you got to fix it now, or you got to get away now, or you want to be like, fix it now. Like maybe your spouse says something and they say it in such a way that it hurts your feelings, and you either withdraw to lick your wounds or you attack. That's often the two responses. So, or you're running around trying to people please so that it never happens again. That's another one. Okay. But there's some sort of triggering event that occurs, situation, issue, conversation, or problem. Usually in our most intimate relationships is where we experience this deeper pain. So the first thing you want to do is slow everything down. Pause, breathe, get still enough to take long, deep breaths. Even drinking a glass of water can help. Just calm and slow everything down. And ask your brain, your thinking self, the self that says, hey, you know, we got to fix this, or this is why you're feeling this way, or you always do this, or some sort of self-defeating self-talk. Just ask your thinking self to take a back seat and go into your body. What do you feel in your body and where do you feel it? When you do that, when you're more aware of your body, it just helps you to calm down so you're not wanting to react from your pain. And then you're going to get curious. And getting curious takes time, and it doesn't happen in the same day sometimes. But it is a curiosity that is very whimsical, okay? It is not this curiosity that's like, I'm going to research this to the nth degree. It's like, I wonder why I reacted that way. So you can sit with it. There are exercises you can do, like naming emotions. You can use writing prompts to kind of walk through. Or you can really just kind of reflect on what you felt, what caused you to react that way or respond that way, what triggered that pain, what did it remind you of, and then just allow yourself to kind of just feel what you feel and know that feelings move on. They're not static, they're dynamic. And then honor your healing process. That's huge, huge to honor your healing process. Okay, so here's the emotional wheel. I want to point you to the emotional wheel always because it is the best way to name your emotions. You would identify kind of your core emotion, right? Whether what your pain is. What emotion is arising with that pain? Is it fear? Is it anger? Abandonment? Sadness? What is it? And then get to the next level. Go to the next level until a word resonates. No one can do this for you. This is your words. Because as soon as you begin to get the words that seem to resonate and make sense, you're going to feel validated. You're going to feel like, that's exactly what I feel. That's spot on. Excellent. And then you can just kind of get curious about that and observe it. And then that's it. Get curious about it. But because the next time it happens, you may not be as responsive to, as sensitive. You may be more aware of it. This is how self-growth happens. It happens in little tiny bits, y'all. Little tiny things, little tiny tweaks. It's not this, mountaintop moment. It's a series of little tiny things for a very, very long time is what changes behavior and what produces personal awareness and personal growth. Just how it works. All right. So here are the writing prompts, and I'm just going to walk through them a little bit, and then I'm going to make sure that I put them in the notes for the podcast so you can click right to them. This is an example of how I would walk someone through the writing prompts. I will do this for myself, just use me as the example, but this is kind of how I'd walk through it. There's a lot more to it because when I'm talking to another individual, usually there's detours along the way that we go into deeper conversation. But it's really just an example, okay? So take that with know that this is a sample. It's a lot more dynamic in conversation. And one day, at some point, I'm going to have a client where we can walk through these writing prompts in a way that can be heard. And you can see it in live. You can see it in action one day. Right now, it's just not something I'm ready to do at this time because some of this stuff is just personal and intimate, and it's going to depend on the client who would decide to do that. Okay. So a recent triggering event that felt hard, challenging was last night. I just felt intense emotion with regard to my husband, strong emotion. And I could not figure out why, but I felt intensely insecure and a little needy. And I don't know why, but that's how I felt. He has been, he had surgery, and there's a lot going on, and so I've been caretaking a lot, and it was just really fascinating that I had this strong need to be needed, and I felt really insecure about that. I recall my body felt hot. So often when I'm triggered, I know myself. I get hot and sweaty. Like I start perspiring. That's kind of my cue that something's going on. It may have felt hot and sweaty. The part of my body where I felt this was my neck. My neck was hot. My head gets hot. My face was hot. My neck was hot. I felt really needy. I felt super emotional, super sensitive, super super intense feelings. Those feelings reminded me of a time in my previous marriage when I would feel a strong urge to fix or do something to make everything okay. So it reminded me of like people pleasing, I guess, and needing to be needed. It reminded me of that. The feelings that come up with that right now are embarrassment and surprise a little. I'm always surprised at how the writing prompts come at me. Yeah, so like I'm a little surprised that I connected it to my previous marriage. And that's very curious. Like I'm curious about why that is. But the feelings that come with that are surprise and embarrassment that I did have this people pleasing thing way back then, even. What I needed then was to be emotionally supported, to be valued, to be heard. I felt like I had to be somebody I wasn't in order to be liked. And that is a regular recurring pattern in a lot of my behavior when I work through, past experiences as a child. That comes up often. But what I needed then in my previous marriage was emotional support, value, to feel valued, to feel accepted as I was. But I didn't get it. So I just controlled everything and fixed everything and acted as if I was fine. Coping mechanisms. That's what I did. The story that I tell myself about that is that I had to do what I had to do to survive. And as hard as it was, is I didn't have any other choice. The story that I tell myself about that is that I didn't have any other choice. It's probably where I land. Taking a step back from that story, I see that I could believe that I didn't have a choice because it felt too hard. It felt too overwhelming. felt too paralyzing. I can rewrite that story by asking for what I need in my current marriage and asking for emotional support and asking for, you know, input on, do you value me? Do you appreciate me? Asking for it. That is such a hard thing for me to do. Um, Such a hard thing for me to do, even now. How hard it is for me to depend on anyone. Um, Independence is much safer to me in a lot of ways. It feels much safer. It's not, but it feels much safer. So I can rewrite that story by saying I can ask for what I need. And I can show up for myself by trying that, by speaking my needs, by asking for what I need in a way that's honest and true, and that it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to have needs, to depend on someone, to want to try my best. One way I can offer myself compassion and kindness is to remind myself that even back then I was doing the best I could do. I am a big believer in people are doing the best they can do, as hard as that is. And let me tell y'all, it's hard. It's hard to really accept that everyone's doing the best they could do. But I do want to offer myself compassion by saying I do believe I did the best I could do at the time. And then when I knew better, I did better. So that's a big one for me. Knowing this, I am more able to show up for others in my life because I say this all the time, because I'm willing to show up for myself. Doing this, I'm willing to walk myself through my pain and bringing up these writing prompts. With these writing prompts, bring up information. It brings up stuff. And I am willing to do that because when I do that with myself, I am so much more empathetic in listening to others and being present to others. And those people I love in my life, I want to be as true and as authentic as I can be. But what I don't want to do is pass on my pain. I don't want to do that anymore. And I remember hitting that wall and saying, if I don't deal with my pain, I'm going to pass it on. And as a parent, nothing rang more true to me. And I had seen it evidenced in my life that when I did know my pain or a particular pain, I did pass it on. Same time, I do believe I was doing the best I could do at the time. But now I know better, so I do better. So knowing this, how are you more able to show up for others in your life? Because you're willing to show up for yourself, right? Because you're willing to lean in and do the hard growth stuff that takes time. And remember, it's little bitty things. It's the little bitty tweaks along the way that show the biggest change. All right, so here's my podcast. You can feel good even when life doesn't. You can find it on Spotify, on Apple, on Google Podcasts. And this live will be on the podcast drop on Wednesday morning, probably around 10 a.m. And I will have all this content linked in so you can access it. And here is digital content. Oops, hold on. Digital content to help you feel good now. This is some digital content you can get on my platform. You can find it at letsfeelgoodnow.com. That is Navigating Hard Emotions. It's a little workbook. You walk through it, and there's audio associated with it. So you hear me talking through it, and it's a helpful tool. So these are the services I offer: coaching, individual and group, and upcoming workshops that are coming. And I love doing podcast interviews because I love sharing the goods. This is where you can find me online at Let's Get Real and Writing Real Life and Real Life by Heather on Instagram. And I hope this has been helpful information. I hope this has been helpful. It's always great to show up and be here with all of you and I love showing up. I love showing up here on Mondays at 4 o'clock Eastern time to just kind of share and educate and get the word out there that you can feel good even when life doesn't, that there is a way of being that is beyond where you are now. And when you're ready, I'm here to help. In the meantime, y'all have a wonderful week. Look for the podcast. It'll drop on Wednesday. Have a great week, and I will see y'all on Monday live 4 p.m. next week. Y'all have a good one. Bye. Good one.